Hey, thanks so much for tuning in to Respect Her Game. If you're enjoying this show, be sure to check out Nesson's daily sports podcast, Boston Has Entered the Chat. You can listen on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to your podcasts. What is up? I am Annabelle Hasselbeck here with Kasey Hudson. We got another show full of women's college hoops. We're going to get to talk about the Elite Eight, preview some Final Four of what we do know today. There'll be 2 games happening that Monday night that we don't know yet. We'll be recording before this, but we're excited about it. We have a special guest that we're excited to have on, and maybe we'll get to our girl on fire. But I know, Kasey, you had a very exciting weekend. How was it?
Yeah, it was an interesting weekend, to say the least. Unfortunately, New England said goodbye to a good friend, one of the only 2 people that I actually knew here before I got here. So a nice little quick goodbye. And then I worked. I had some Nesson assignments to get done, and I tried out my first women's hockey clinic over at Warrior
Big
Ice
time.
Arena. So that was fun and very humbling, just so everybody knows. Not that hockey's not humbling to me to begin with. I'm not picking anybody apart. I love the sport for a reason, but wow, let's just say, like, it said beginners on it, and like by drill 2 it was skate backwards, like receive passes backwards, beat it off the wall.
Skate backwards is tough.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's a whole thing, especially when you're going to like receive a pass. You have a heavy stick. Like, it was just all these things. So learned a lot about myself.
Yeah. Do you think doing an interview while on skates or this lesson was harder?
The lesson, for sure.
Really?
I mean, when I tell you the pace was crack, at one point I looked at one of the other
The pace
ladies.
was crack. I need that on a quote graphic. Like, Kasey Hudson Annabelle, the pace was crack.
It was, Annabelle. Like, I swear, I was like, oh, they're just warming up to do their own thing. And then all of a sudden it was like, jump in whenever you're ready, Kasey. And I was like, jump into what? Like, what they're doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, this said beginners on it. So, yeah, definitely a off the cliff kind of class. But again, it was very fun. I liked the high tempo outside of like clearly the learning curve that needed to apply to me. But you got a lot of reps in and stuff like that. I only had one really ridiculous fall. And it's funny because I sent a video to Natalie Nori on Instagram. It was of the Penn State player getting laid out by the UConn player over the weekend. And I was like, this was me. I was the UConn player, and Air was the UConn player. I mean, feet in the air, head down. But hey, you remember at age 33 that you get knocked down and you get up and
yes,
you
I
keep
get
going.
knocked down, but
And
I get up again.
Yeah, I made it here.
Yes, good. Well, I'm so impressed though, because like it's really cool that you talk about hockey, but you're like, I'm actually gonna go and like learn it for myself, and I'm sure it gives you a whole new perspective just on the sport, because it's cool. Like you can speak into things better when you know about it, and I'm sure now when somebody gets hit in one of these next couple games, like, oh man, I know what that feels like.
I'll feel that differently. But I loved it too, because like a large part of my analysis for hockey and stuff is just like there was just so many translations I found to soccer. Soccer is very low scoring. You have to get creative, and a lot of those things actually do correlate to hockey. But to be out there and to feel it out, what was cool is like we played a little game at the end, and I was able to see like where I wanted to set up, where I wanted to position myself as we're like rotating and moving through, and like, you know, as your player is moving up with the puck, like how you need to make yourself available. So like to be able to put that from head out there, like that was cool, because I was like, okay, like I know that I know what I'm doing visually. To get your feet, your skates, and your hands and the gloves and the stick to cooperate with you when you're a foot-eye coordination person. It's fun.
Tough. That's why I struggled with hockey and field hockey too as well, because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I could skate, but I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. But all in very impressive things, whether you're interviewing or you're playing hockey yourself. People got to watch out, because Kasey on Skates is a new thing.
I'm coming
Not the
through.
sports case. Kasey on Skates is what's coming up next. But we already know some of the people in the Elite Eight, 2 of the Final Four contenders, UCLA and South Carolina. And we're recording this right before UConn versus USC and TCU versus Texas, that in-state rivalry in Texas. I've never actually been to Texas and to see a Texas sporting event, so it's got to be very crazy. But just looking at this UCLA Bruins game, beating LSU 72-65, this was absolutely wild. This is LSU's 6th time being in the Sweet 16 under Coach Corey Close. Kasey, how did you react to this game?
Oh my gosh. Well, for a second, LSU had moments where they were able to kind of apply a lot of pressure to UCLA. And I know that there was moments UCLA was short Lauren Betts there for a moment, but I would just tell you that I wasn't expecting that kind of push from UCLA. And then you just consistently hear the commentators be like, you got a jumper from Jones, you got a jumper from Williams, you got another jumper from Jones. It's just like there was moments where it felt like it went tit for tat. Now, then that was more so the first half of the game. Insert the second half of the game, that's when you really saw UCLA and the DNA that they've shown us all season long come into play in formation. And then, of course, they got Betts back into the mix at that point, too. And then the point margin started to increase in their favor. But I'll tell you what, LSU kept it so interesting. They had moments where they started creeping and breathing down UCLA's neck, but you saw why UCLA was able to pull away with that one, not just based off pure talent, but the ability to adjust in that second half.
Yeah, you're so right. The LSU team, regardless of whether it's on the court or on Kim Mulkey's outfits, they scream bling. They scream this like, we're not going down. They have this swag about them that I absolutely love. But following this game, the headline was UCLA is going to the Final Four for the first time in program history. And to myself, I was like, whoa, that's pretty crazy. But Coach Corey Close did want to make a statement about this because actually they went to the Final Four in 1978. So this is what Coach Close said about that.
Thank you to our alumni. I want to first give a shout out. Many people have said it's the first one in NCAA history or UCLA history. It's actually not correct. In 1978, AIAW, they won the national championship and went to the Final Four, and we had some of the alumni here from that team, and Debbie Willie Halliday and Denise Curry, and we had so many other alums, and so I just want to give them their flowers and to say that we are so thankful for the alumni that have supported us along the way, the band, the cheer, the administration, my family, the list goes on, but it takes a village to build a program. If you just don't want a team, but you want a true program that impacts people's hearts first, you don't do that alone. And so I just sit here with great pride and gratitude, and more than anything else, I'm just so incredibly grateful to be able to be a part of their process. They inspire me every day. The way that they commit to give to each other selflessly and sacrificially and intentionally grow and choose a growth mindset. It's not easy. I am one blessed coach.
She literally said, I'm grateful to be a part of their process, which I heard that. I was like, whoa, like you're the head coach. Like you call the shots here and you're saying I'm so grateful to be a part of this. And I love how she gave flowers to the alumni and kind of set the record straight. And yes, maybe technically through like NCAA rankings and all the things and who was a part of the league at that back in 78. Maybe it wasn't technically the Final Four appearance, but I just love that she was like, no, like this is what our program is built on. And she was able to shout those people out.
Yeah, you have to clarify legacy sometimes. So I'm glad that she did say, actually, let's bring some clarification to the table here because you don't want to disregard the foundation of what they are drawing from. We talk about programs and especially dynasty programs so much because they laid out the foundation for the blueprint, basically. This is what we're going to pull from. This is how we're going to build. This is how we're going to create plug and play opportunities. And then also the other thing that I love so much that she mentioned in that is just like piercing through the heart first, like gaining the hearts of fans, gaining the hearts of players, gaining the hearts of everybody around. Like that's the biggest part of a buy-in is like your passion's going to come through you being like wanting to be there. And that starts with like reaching out to the heart, creating connection, relationship and all that good stuff. So
yeah, I mean, she literally mentioned like the band and cheer, like
yeah,
what
everybody.
Coaches are doing that, right? I think there were a lot of March Madness coaches that I did see, whether it was GCU women's basketball or even Coach Close, like high-fiving the cheerleaders, high-fiving the bands, going up to the student section after the games and like celebrating with the student section. I think that's such the fun part of being a part of college sports is that when your coaches and your programs really get into it. I know Dylan Cardwell on Auburn men's basketball was chanting after he was cutting down the net the other night, like with the whole arena and with the whole crowd. And I think that's what makes these programs so good. And it just adds to the momentum that you get to carry on into the next game. But like you said earlier, a player that is really carrying momentum on throughout the entire game, whether she's in or out, is Lauren Betts. She had that and one with just a minute left in the game. And not only does does that help you on the scoreboard, but that also helps like put that dagger in, right? At the end of the game, it's like, oh, like the best player had the and one, right? It's not just like a layup or a 3-point, like it is a dagger. And so I think that's their X factor, right? When you can have your best player show up in those moments, even if they've been showing up the whole game. It's kind of like in lacrosse, you get a free position and somebody gets a yellow card at the end of the game. Everyone's like, oh, it's like just part of it. It adds to the excitement, the energy to that. So I think really for UCLA, her coming up with that big play at the end of the game is what really set the tone.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned swagger for LSU, and I think that that's probably like the swagger chip for UCLA, because even though there was moments that Betts wasn't in the mix, we know that she can be a leader. We know that she's looked up to tremendously on this team and roster, but for her to have a moment, just kind of be on the side there, for the team to still be rallying, and then for her to be like the closer, the polish off, like that takes swag. You know, you're clearly not feeling 100%. There's wear and tear on the body in these kind of tournaments that you're not going to talk about till the very end, and then you come in and close it out like that. Like, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. If you're enjoying the show, you can catch new episodes of Respect Your Game every Tuesday. You can watch on YouTube or Twitch and listen on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts. Well, here's what Lauren had to say about their game against LSU last year to this year.
There were lots of things that we could have gotten down about this game. I mean, obviously we had fouls, people, maybe not getting calls or whatever, but I think we were just all, mentally prepared, and we've toughened up since, mid-season. Like, we've learned a lot, and I think that as teammates, we just continue to hold each other accountable, and I just think it's worked so much for us. But I think there's obviously been a lot of work that's gone into today, and like I said before, I'm just really proud of our group. We've worked so hard, so yeah.
Well, she mentioned toughen up, and I'm thinking, I've seen you be tough this whole season. Like, you guys were number one for a long time there, and just watching the game, if you watch the off-ball play, these girls are falling down in the paint just by how hard they're boxing out without the ball. Like, they're not even going up for a rebound. They're just trying to get their space and create that where they want to receive the pass. And so I just love how she talked about that mental toughness too, is like, hey, like now we've grown as a team. And I just thought that was cool for her to reflect back on this game from last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And then for her to be able to speak on mental toughness, just kind of tracking back to UCLA having moments where they couldn't fully rely on her, not because of her, but because of either teams kind of being able to kind of contain her a little bit more, limit her play, or more so because of some injury adversity that she's had to deal with on and off throughout the entire season. So if you got somebody who knows mental toughness in a number of degrees, it's going to be that, because to have the pressure of like knowing that a team is counting on you to collect those points, to make those clutch plays happen, and you're going up against, say USC a couple weeks ago or almost a month ago at this point, then you have to mentally still be in it, and you still have to mentally be able to be a leader and like guide your team to show up and continue to pull through. So just the way that she was able to approach that, it speaks to what she's done all season.
Well, it's funny because we talk so highly of Lauren Betts, and we're like talk about the threat that she is, but she came off the court. We didn't see her in the second quarter because she got fouls early in the game, and you can't even imagine what the stress level was on that UCLA bench when that happens. You're like, oh, get out, don't touch a soul, don't even touch one of our own players on the bench, right? But the craziest part is that UCLA actually went up 22, the second quarter was 22-12 when she was off the court, and so that just shows you like the championship focus of this team to be able to rise to the occasion and say, oh no, like now we have to step it up because our best player is not on the court.
Yeah, they felt that this season. They realized that they'll lose a game, again, tracking back to USC, if they only rely on her to be kind of that pivotal player every single game. The skill set speaks for itself, so she is going to be impactful, but yet what is everybody else going to do around her? I mean, there's been a number of previews you and I have broken down here on Respect Her Game, and like sometimes one of the first things I point out is like, what's the drop off between your top player that's always going to get it done and your next player, like that next man or next woman up mentality. And sometimes the drop off, the margin is just too steep, and I feel like UCLA felt that a couple months ago and realized, okay, we can't go into a tournament with that.
Right. And part of that's like confidence too, like knowing, oh, I'm not that girl who usually takes that shot or usually drives to the paint or usually creates something or even just takes initiative and is the quarterback or has to get the rebound. Right now that you don't have 6'7" Lauren Betts in the paint, who's going to be that person? So I bet you too, it just comes with not only the depth that they do have, but the confidence in these young women to know, okay, I can also be such an X factor for this team. But it wasn't just UCLA that felt their impact when Lauren was out. It was also Kim Mulkey from LSU. So here's what she had to say about how her team handled Lauren Betts being off the court.
I look at this stat sheet. We outscored them 4 field goals. Now the foul line, I think they went there almost 30 times to our 12. We out-rebounded them. I would have to go back and look at the shots. We missed just wide open shots. We knew going in the paint that there would be opportunity for her to alter shots and block shots. But some of the shots we just missed, we missed until I can go back and look at the film and see why we missed those.
I think she has the best voice out of any coach in the NCAA. I'm like, it's just it's like soothing, but then I can imagine her screaming on the court is not soothing.
But it's almost theatric in a non-dramatic way.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like she could read you something, pull you into a story. She's the opening voice of a movie that's about to get really twisted.
The best comparison ever. Like literally, it's so good. Like she should be a storyteller.
Yeah. She needs to be the narrating voice of like a number of great movies.
That is so good. But she's so right. Like they just couldn't capitalize on bets being off the floor. And that's what you have to do. You have to use opportunities when teams are forcing their own turnovers and it's, careless errors, or even when best players go down or off the court. Like you really need to say, hey team, like let's lock in, let's use what they don't have at this moment, because you plan to get fouls on other players. Like girls will go up, and whether it's throwing their body into you or being a little more exaggerating with their body, they're trying to get fouls, especially on your best player. So whether that was part of their game plan or not, that is something that they needed to capitalize on.
Yeah, and I'm sure that stings because, as we mentioned, there was a number of moments where LSU was just kind of like very much in the hunt, breathing down UCLA's neck. And if UCLA fell apart or faltered by any means, like LSU could have put themselves back into the situation. I love how she broke down the stat sheet, and that's where the drama
in real time
really,
reading it. Well, we out rebounded them actually.
Yeah, like in case you missed it, we did all these things so well, but you just see why the games like this, they come so close. Like it comes down to certain shots, and if you can't follow through with piecing together, stringing together those opportunities as she painted out when it comes to the shots, then you're gonna miss out on a big opportunity. So that was unfortunate.
Well, my bracket, the other thing that's not unfortunate is that my bracket is still good with the winner. I have UCLA going all the way, so
you did.
I am happy about it for sure. And I mean, that was just wild how that all came about, but I am excited for them. But really, I'm excited to see who they're going to play, because I know the girls were asked, the UCLA girls were asked in their post-game press conference, like, who would you want to play? And I think someone had brought up USC, and they all kind of smiled and were like, no comment, but you probably could guess who that they would want to play, right? The team that they have conquered before. And I just think it's going to be really interesting, because without Juju, that creates, its own different monster, right? Because there's that, you think that it's going to be better because you don't have the best player, but you never know what a team, like when Lauren Betts was off the court with her fouls, what teams will rise to the occasion.
Yeah, and I think that's the hard part, is like because of the versatility of Juju Watson's game, and the leader that she is, and the fact that she's kind of pulled through on massively clutch moments that, wherever USC almost lost a game, she was kind of that force to pull them back in. The hard part with them is even though they were the best defensive team in women's college basketball, I get nervous about, without Juju being in the mix and the points that she's able to produce, if they're going to get stuck into defensive roles so much to the point to where they're not picking up their own points. In the first game without Juju Watkins, we saw their points, their average drop almost quite significantly. So it's so hard to have this happen. I'm sure my concern for it is nothing compared to Juju having to digest this, but moreover, it's just okay, we'll really see if anybody else can help out in this fact. But I had them going deep.
Yeah.
Juju was just,
that was so disappointing. I literally, when I saw the news, I had a gasp. My parents ran out for it. Are you okay? I was like, no.
Did you
Juju went down. Yeah, it was so upsetting, but it's been cool to see how her team and community have really rallied around her. But we have to get to the other game though too. The thriller in South Carolina beating Duke 54-50. At halftime, it was 26-22, and you thought that was super close. Well, it really came down to the last 30 seconds. Chloe Kitts made 2 free throws with 5 seconds left to solidify the win, and Bree Hall, a veteran on this South Carolina team, had a great defensive play. But man, you just think about South Carolina and going up against Duke, an ACC team who earlier in the season nobody would have probably thought that they'd be in this game. And what I loved about South Carolina's reaction is you would have thought they'd be like, oh, well, we knew that we were supposed to win this game. This is what, all the predictions were. This is how our standard for us. But they were so excited still, even having a close game, even when it was like, oh no, like we might let this slip through our fingers. They were jumping up on each other. They were screaming. They were so happy. They were taking selfies with the trophy. And I love that because you can still have a standard of excellence and a standard and know what your guys should be able to accomplish with your team, but also still be in awe in such an awesome moment that you dream for.
Yeah, I mean, think of their head coach, right? I feel like they have been taught from go to always try to be as present as possible, to always be as in the moment as possible, and to take it all in because you never know when it's going to get taken away. And they're fighting for their lives, in all honesty. They've been counted out a number of times. They have found a way to overcome in majority of the scenarios in which they've been counted out, but now it's a tournament where it's do or die, and it's kind of scary how this game played out because Duke, like you said, nobody had them circled to be a part of the mix, at least on the top of the season, and they had some pushes. I mean, they kind of had a third quarter takeover there that made things look very interesting, and they had a keen ability to push South Carolina out of their original game plan. This is a team that's known to kind of command games through their rebounds, and you usually have 5 key players that are involved in the rebounding, and they limited them to just maybe 2 at best. Yeah. So they took them out of their game plan. They kind of made them uncomfortable. They forced them to play a lot more defense than anything else. But then that's where the leadership and your head coach and the veteran presence on this team comes in hot and heavy because they were able to dial it up and have the fourth quarter that they needed to make sure that they got past Duke. But it was nerve-wracking there for a minute.
Definitely. No, definitely. And it's that senior leadership that really stepped up, whether it was Kits or Pow Pow who had the layup to tie the game. Those are huge. And just like Betts coming in with the and one, when your team sees your senior leader, your grad student leader, or the girl who's been there for years or has done it, Haley Van Liff, whether you've been on the team for a long time or just experienced being on different teams for a long time, that helps your team gain so much confidence because you see your leader going to bat in the most intense parts of the game and really of your season could be ending. So I absolutely love that for South Carolina. But like you said, they have to get on their defense, specifically their defensive rebounds, because that's what Duke showed up to do. They showed that hustle play, and rebounds are a hustle play. Yeah. It really is. It's who wants it more and who can, have the skill to box out and all the things. And obviously height matters when you have a 6'7" Lauren Betts. It's a little challenging, but really I'm as dominant as South Carolina is, this Duke team was very impressive, and they have incredible freshmen, juniors that will be returning. Jackson is one of them, and so excited to see this ACC team do really well in the future.
Yeah, I like what the average age is looking like on this roster, because now coming in the upcoming season, I don't think they'll be counted out as much, that's for sure. But for South Carolina to be able to grit out these kinds of wins, I mean, this is kind of what this tournament's built on as well. So they've got some key mistakes that they can easily clean up. I mean, they had some crucial turnovers and forced errors, and these are all things that they know how to bounce back from.
Definitely.
So we'll see where the climb goes from there.
And what I do love about the South Carolina team, too, is I don't know if you saw this, but they're very serious, right? Dawn Staley has a very mature and kind of subtle poise to them. It's like a dangerous poise to them a little bit. But also, Chloe Kits does kids coloring books before the games, calm it down. It's her de-stress. And I thought to myself, maybe I should go buy a kids coloring book. But I just love how dominant this team is. But at the same time, they can also have fun and be light and know what works for them.
Yeah, I honestly, I would enjoy a kids coloring book. I've done it with my best friend's kids a couple of times, and it is soothing. So.
Well, good. Well, maybe we need to make a Nesson kids coloring book. But you can stream the entire Sox season with a Nesson 360 annual plan available at an all-new reduced price of just $20 a month paid annually, and for a limited time, get 4 free tickets to Fenway with your purchase. Visit Nesson360.com to sign up today. Well, there are 2 more big games in the Elite Eight that we have to preview. We have TCU and Texas, but really the storyline here and the game that we're going to talk about is UConn versus USC. This is the game that all basketball fans have had circled and we're hoping to watch this late in the season. So, Kasey, UConn versus USC, what excites you most about this matchup?
Oh, my gosh. Well, beforehand, of course, we all would have probably had a different perspective, but what excites me most is probably the fact that Paige Beckers is going to be, I hate to use the term foaming at the mouth, but I feel like she's going to come in with something to prove. And you're going to have want to have such a dominating performance, which we know she's capable of having, because what you don't want the storyline to be is UConn beat USC because there's no Juju Watkins. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, there's going to be such a methodical play to her game. So I'm just looking forward to what that next step is. I always talk about what the drop-off is from your star player to your next player. I want to see how Sarah Strong comes into this mix-up. I want to see what kind of rebounding game that she brings to the table, as well as contributing points, just in case they try to find ways to limit and contain Paige Beckers a little bit. Not that she's all that containable, but I've talked about the fact that USC might get pinned to more of a defensive role, but they are going to have to lock in on making sure they minimize her, because that drop off between the next person who's going to pick up points, it's strong, and she's going to have to come in, no pun on words, very strong.
Very strong. No, I love that you brought that up. And this UConn team, just as much as that storyline is probably going around and people are saying, oh, well, because Juju's not there, it's not going to be the same. Like, UConn has experienced season-ending injuries too.
Right.
Paige was out most of her sophomore year. And so this isn't a program that doesn't know that. They know the heartache of that. They can empathize with USC and, like, really be a friend in the basketball world to them. At the same time, knowing, oh, no, we're coming at you. Like, we don't care what people are thinking or saying about the legitimateness of the win.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be a win. Going to the Final Four regardless is extremely difficult. Well, it doesn't matter who's on the court, right? And so I think Paige is going to play with that fieriness. Strong is going to play with that fieriness. And it's not something that they're going to let that noise creep in, because they've dealt with it themselves.
Yeah, a number of times. And that's why, like, it's going to be fun to see what Beckers decides to, how she dials this up per se, because if anything, I think we've discussed it here on Respect Her Game. She's somebody who has had so much adversity in her career, had to bounce back for such big issues. And honestly, I don't think that storyline would have much air to it that long anyway, because of the way that this UConn team carries themselves. But absolutely, I just want to see who the next couple of players are that are going to step into the mix and be like the ultimate supporting cast for Beckers and what we know that she's going to bring to the court. But on the other flip side of it, yes, I've talked about the fact that USC can't get pinned, but there's some potential there for some surprising spark. I mean, Ryan Marshall, for one, I want to see a little bit more points out of her, but if she has another dominating rebound game, then we know how strong that can tilt everything to make it a more interesting game and to have USC breathing down UConn's neck. Also, Avery Howell, 18 points, 8 rebounds. You're talking about one of the other more complete players to contribute on both assets of not just defensively stout, but offensively stout. So they've got some players that just have to kind of readjust not only the new weight on their shoulders, but the consistency between this new weight they're going to have to carry in the matchup.
Right, and Avery Howell and Kennedy Smith, freshmen.
Right.
Like, these are
So
freshmen
young.
that just dropped 19 points and 18 points in their last game. You know, numbers that they hadn't reached prior to Juju being on the court. And so it's really awesome to see them step up. And that's what it's going to take. If you want to conquer Paige Beckers and this UConn team, you're going to need your freshmen to step up. It can't just be Kiki leading the team, right? You need those X factor people to really come in. And that's what also makes this team dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Is because a team like UConn probably hasn't been studying them the same. They haven't looked at those girls and those players as that much of a threat. But even with the presence of Juju out, it's been cool to see how this team has really rallied around her. I know pregame they were wearing these awesome shirts before the game with Juju's face on them. It had the Nike swoosh. It was really cool. They had a little figurine of her on the sideline, literally sitting on the court. It was called like a Funko Pop or something. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not heard of that.
Yeah, I'm like, I must just not be that cool. But they had that, and then there were other just cool tributes to her from the fans and from the USC just school as a whole, because you know the impact that this women's basketball team has had just on the campus at USC. So as much as it is such a bummer to not get to see this matchup, it is really cool to see how UCLA has really leaned in to USC has really leaned in to supporting Juju.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. There's a new testament to like how these younger players can step up to the plate and get the job done. And I think that this isn't the first time that they've had that expectation. They have faced a lot of challenges throughout the season where they've been counted out and shown that they're more mature and capable beyond, their first year or second year, depending on what their particular situation is. So I think that the game plan can be simple for them. They're strong defensively. Let's just see who else can step up to the, I don't want to say plate anymore, who can step up and add to the point tally, make this a little bit more interesting offensively, because they already know what a threat Paige Beckers is going to be in the rest of the UConn Huskies team.
Definitely. And just the experience that they have, not only as the players, but also Gino Ariema and having his experience and his wisdom. So here's what Gino had to say about just the Final Four in the format of this tournament.
God bless whoever wins Monday night, okay? And they've got to fly cross country, which is all day Tuesday. Then they have 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday, to play the biggest game of their life. The guys who don't know about it, according to a lot of women's basketball people, they finish Sunday. Then they have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and they play Saturday. But there's a lot of people in the women's basketball committee that think they're smarter than that. So whoever came up with this super regional stuff, and I know who they are, ruined the game. They did. They ruined the game. Half the country has no chance to get to a game in person. But you're making billions off of TV. Well, actually, you're not. That would be the men's tournament. So, yeah, there's a lot of issues that they need to fix. And again, we could get our ass beat tomorrow, and that won't change my feelings. All right. Any other happy thoughts?
This clip literally gave, I will find you and I will kill you, basically, from his experience. But just Kasey, getting ready for this game, what team do you think can handle what Gino is so upset about with this Final Four format?
I mean, I think UConn. I think UConn has the veterans. I think UConn has the ability and the experience and the players and the clutch moments, all the keys. I would want to say they have less question marks. Let's just put it that in simple.
Big time. Well, I am super excited to watch this matchup. It's been on my calendar for a long time, hoping that we would have this game, and we finally do. But another special guest that we have to make time for and have to welcome on. So excited to have Andrea Fortunati of the Boston Bruins on Respect Her Game. Hey, we are so excited to welcome on Andrea Fortunati of the Boston Bruins. Andrea, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, well, I would love to talk about your experience with the Boston Bruins and your professional career, but I want to learn a little bit more about you. So I want to go way back. When did you know that this was what you wanted to do professionally?
So a few different factors. When my little brother had to be in and out of the hospital growing up, so I always thought I wanted to do something with the medical field. And then in high school, we had a sports medicine class, so that really intrigued my interest. And then when looking at undergrad, looking at different degrees that were possible, athletic training kept popping up. So then combining my love for the medical field, wanting to do something in the healthcare field and sports, it really seemed like the perfect fit for me. So I guess throughout my life, it's just led me to this direction. I originally thought I'd wanted to be a nurse, but then wanted to work with athletes, so it was the perfect fit of athletic training to be able to work with different athletes and build my way up to here.
I love that, especially because it's something that you kind of always knew was just like in the back of your mind. You're going to do something in the medical field and then end up being this. You get to have more personal reactions and interactions, one would say, with athletic training. What's kind of been some impactful moments in your journey since you made the decision to be an athletic trainer?
Yeah, so you get to have a lot of one-on-ones with the athletes. You get to really know and understand who they are as people first and then as athletes. Sometimes you get to work with the athletes when they're on the lowest of their low, so it's helping them work through certain situations and then help build them back up. And then sometimes you get to work with them at the highest of the highs, the greatest of their achievements and accomplishments. So it's really working with the whole person and all ends of the spectrum, whether it be an illness, an injury, throughout competitions, wins and losses. So it's really being there with the athlete for everything. So it's really cool to be a part of that and get to know who they are throughout their career and day.
That's really cool. And I'm sure it's been so fulfilling for you, too, to be able to help people, right? And then see them do what they love and to live out their dream and get back on the field or the ice or the track or wherever they are. But I know that you've worked with many different athletes across multiple different sports, but I'd love to know just how that diversity in sport has helped you do what you're doing now with the Bruins.
Yeah, so I've worked with a range of athletes, from high school athletes to college athletes to pro athletes to Olympic athletes, now working with professional athletes with the Bruins and male-specific athletes. So this is the first time that I'm working with a male-only team. I've historically worked with males and females, so that's one variance up until this point. So yeah, getting to work with athletes of all ages, you get to learn who the person is, and then I think it's important to know who they've been growing up. So working with athletes as a youth into college and into the professional setting is cool to see that transition. It may not be the same people, but at least you kind of understand their mindset of where they could have been as a youth, as a collegiate athlete, or just in their early 20s and in their working with the whole athlete in person. It's been cool to work in different stages of their lives, stages of their careers, skill set of their careers. So yeah, it's been really eye-opening to be able to almost see all areas of athletics and the athlete mind.
I love that because it's almost perfectly curtailed to work in hockey by any means. You get a lot of young guys, and then, I mean, the age range can be anywhere from 18, 19, 20 up to 35, 36, 37. So
yeah, it's
perfect. It is. It's such a broad range, and I think it's definitely a bit different from most, or it varies from most other professional sports. But something else that jumps off the page when you're thinking about hockey is high pace, high impact. What's it like to be an athletic trainer in such a atmosphere such as that? There's a lot of injuries throughout a season. It's a pretty long and tedious season on top of it.
Yeah, 82 games is quite a long season, and then there's preseason. And so yeah, the injuries that we see, we're trained for it through athletic training school. In the beginning of every season, we go through our emergency action plan. We practice and prepare for different injuries that we're likely going to see. And even if we don't see them, hope we don't see them, but at least are prepared for them if they do come across. So there's a lot of practice and preparation for any of these injuries that could come up, whether it's a spine boarding injury, whether it's they lose their tooth during a game, whether they need stitches during a game, and all those things happen. So we have the medical providers in the back that are required through the NHL in order to care for them and get them back on the ice as quick as possible. So it's high intensity, high fast pace, and we have a lot of providers in the background that are able to get them back quickly. And when it comes to rehab and injuries, we have a wide range of team. We have a few physical therapists that are able to work with them. So even when we're traveling, there's still a physical therapist that's able to stay home with the guys, working with them there. So it's nice to work within a large medical staff to really help the athletes of all areas possible of whatever stage of their injury recovery and return, or whether it's just a quick acute injury, a shot block or something like that. That's just a quick x-ray to make sure that's not a fracture and move on from there.
Well, you mentioned tooth, and I was like, I wasn't even thinking about teeth, but yes, in hockey,
yeah,
that is
dentists are required. They're very much utilized.
Good. Well, that's a very real thing, and even the shot block, like you say it so casually, but that hurts.
Painful.
Like you can't even fathom that. But I just wonder, maybe experiencing things from teeth to shot blocks to hamstrings, right? Has there been a pivotal moment in your professional career that has changed you or developed your understanding of your job for the better?
I think just over time and each year you continue to grow as a provider and as a person. So it's not necessarily, I don't think there's been one exact moment for me that's been an aha moment. It's been more or less of each case, each injury, each complaint that's come about just continues to make you a better provider because you see more, you have more experience. So yeah, I just think with time it helps to master your practice, so to say.
Oh, that's a good thing to build off of, because I feel like if there's one thing I've noticed about athletic trainers is like you all are very much in constant education mode and research mode and learning mode. It doesn't end, and medical field as a whole has just evolved so much and continues to do so. Is there anything that you had to find a new approach to since joining the Bruins, a new research method or medically, or like anything that you kind of had to build off of from your previous experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So anatomy is anatomy at the end of the day. So I've worked with male athletes. That hasn't changed. And as an athletic trainer working specifically with one sport, that's ice hockey, you get to learn the ice hockey body, the ice hockey athlete. So their range of motions, their joint movement, their strengths are going to be different than you and I. So it's comparing an ice hockey player to an ice hockey player. So it's figuring out what's normal for them and then going for there, because you don't want to fix something that should be there or something else like that, or you don't want to have them have too much mobility if that's not their sport requirement, because that'll create issues down the road. So it's like you've got to understand what's normal for them and return them back to their normal.
That is so interesting, and I absolutely love that you touched on that, because I think even young athletes need to hear, hey, if you're a hockey player, like, you need to focus on strengthening these areas. And, you know, in the same way, if you're a gymnast, like, you need to have really strong wrist strength for certain things. And I know just the carryover between different sports. So I love that you can understand the purpose and how you articulated that, because I think it's so important, even just for like understanding your own body and the composition of what makes you a great athlete. I think that is so incredible. So I'm really glad that you said that. But I'd love to know, just what does a day in the life look like for you?
It's so different. Every day is very different. So like I'm still trying to figure out sleep schedules and everything like that. So, but typically we'll show up to the rink a couple hours before the athletes do. We'll set up the training rooms, whether that's home or away, to make sure everything's prepared. We're ready. We've had lunch or we've had breakfast, and maybe a couple cups of coffee by that time the athletes come walk through the door. And then we've gone over the injury report. We know what's going on for the day. We know who's doing what. And then the athletes will slowly stroll in, whether it's the injured guys will come in first. They'll do their rehabs, their treatments, and then the other guys will come through and practice rehabs, recoveries, and that sort. And then we'll practice and then do post-practice treatments. And that's for a practice day. And then for a game day, it's that, plus you go home for a couple hours and then come back a couple hours early before the game and do the same thing over again.
Well, hopefully my next question isn't a day-to-day situation, but is there anything specific? Now you're working in a very superstitious sport, but you have moments in certain games where it's an extremely high pressured and high stress situation. How do you manage that and find yourself able to perform? Is it maybe just like a trait from when you were younger that draws into it, or do you kind of have a method when you finally get your own personal time and space, like, this is how I can handle high stress?
I think it's evolved over practice over the years. I'd have to argue in this position there are a couple other athletic trainers. So the head athletic trainer is the first one on the ice during games, which is one of the highest stress visual jobs that people would see on the ice. He's the first one to go on. Whereas before, that would have been my position. So I'd almost argue that the position I've had before, where I had less support, is a little more stressful, knowing you are the only medical provider and there might be 300 athletes there, and then the away team doesn't travel with anyone. So that can be a little bit more stressful. But then here we have a lot of support with the physicians right in our back pocket or in the back during the games. So there's a lot of extra support during this position, which is really helpful, having a lot of medical providers. And then as in high stress, working with the athletes, you just do the best that you can every day, and you perform at your highest level that you can while working with them, and give the best that you can, and then hope that they give the best that they can. So it's a mutual respect, everybody gives it their all, no matter what part of the team you are. Everyone just loves what they do and are passionate what they do and wants to be the best and do the best that they can.
That's awesome. And I'm sure, like you said, it is stressful, especially if you're the only one on the medical staff present at that time, but everybody else is looking to you and trusts you. So even if it's a stressful situation, I'm sure that everybody else is looking to you for guidance and knowing that you're the person who knows the most about the situation. But just looking at your time with the Bruins, do you have a favorite memory that sticks out?
I really like working with medical providers in a large team. That was one of the things I got to do with USA Swimming. There'd be a chiropractor, a physical therapist, a doctor, another massage therapist, another athletic trainer. So I think the biggest things is just having the ability to collaborate with so many people that are really good at their jobs and are passionate about what they're doing and have been in the field for a while, and learning from them. So like you said, athletic training is very much a research education base. So it's just continuously working with being in the space is really cool.
Yeah. And as you and Annabelle touched on, you've had the experience of being able to work with all sorts of athletes from college to pro, and even some Olympic in there. But is there like a favorite memory that you have overall? Something that really kind of made you feel charged in this choice to be an athletic trainer?
I really like seeing the athletes go in full circle. So from when the time that they get injured to when they're fully on the field, and it's just the full circle moment of we've done this together. The athlete puts in all the really hard work, and I get to help them through that process. So I think some of the biggest moments and the biggest, like, I love what I do and this is why I do it, is just being able to see them do what they want to do and being able to perform at a higher level than they were before they were injured. So I think that's one of the biggest moments, is just being able to watch that, going from a brutal injury to being able to perform their sport, going from someone that can't walk, can't talk, or whatever the issue might have been, or being from the worst day of their life to coming back from a dark place. So that's really the biggest moments, is just being able to be with them as they progress and improve and get better.
Yeah, you mentioned just being with them in some of those hardest moments of their life, right? And following their dreams and getting to play the sport that they love. And as much as your work is physical and hands-on, there's a lot of emotional, like human to human, that goes down with you just going along that journey with them. So maybe what is something that you've learned along the way, or some advice that you would give someone to handle those emotional relationships and to really help your athlete out in that sense?
Sometimes athletes just want to be there. They just want to sit. They just want someone to listen to them or just be quiet with them. So it's not always about filling the space or making a lot of noise. Sometimes it's just about being with the person and trying to figure out what they might need or might want, whether it's making a silly joke, making a little questionnaire, or something entertaining, and just figuring out what they may need.
That's a good point. It takes some time and it takes a lot of patience, I would think. Would you say that like patience is maybe one of the obstacles to being on a comeback journey with a player, or like trying to kind of anticipate their moods, their needs, their wants, and where they're at along their journey?
Absolutely. Coming back from a long-term injury can be incredibly frustrating for everybody, because we want them to return as quickly as possible as well, but there are protocols in place for a reason. So it's usually the further along they are, when they're almost cleared, that they get the most frustrated and anxious early on in a return to early on in the protocol and post-operative or something like that. They kind of understand. They realize it's going to take a while. I understand. But once they start to feel better, they just want to be back. They don't, even if they're a month out, they're just like, but I feel great. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean they can perform at the level they need to. So it's just reeling in the reins.
That's awesome. And we can't be in the Boston Bruins athletic training room and know what's going on all in there. And I'm sure there's some things that you're not allowed to talk about, but I'd love to know, just from your perspective, what do you think the Bruins are doing with your work that feels like it's the cutting edge of athletic training? Because there's a lot of things that you guys have probably done for years and years and years and is the staple of what you do. But what's something that you feel you're really excited about moving forward with this organization?
So one of the biggest things is that they accepted and hired a female in this role. So for me, that feels like a really big moment, and that they're moving forward, and that they're almost breaking barriers. So before, they haven't hired a full-time massage therapist that travels in this position, or a full-time athletic trainer that's been a female. So that feels big in itself, and that they're hiring people for that role that have the experiences that they're looking for, and not just making it more convenient and hiring male. So that feels big in itself.
It's huge. It's a huge deal.
I was going to say, it's a massive deal. And honestly, building off of that, because to get that tap to be the first and to kind of step into that role and create new shoes or new footprints, one would say, did you have any adjustment periods to kind of like relearning your voice or trusting your voice? Because sometimes, in male dominated industries, you're great at what you do, but sometimes your delivery has to be adjusted, or you've got to stand firm in the fact that you're not going to readjust anything.
Yeah, so it's been a little different. This role has been a lot of massage-based as well as athletic training. So we have 2 other massage therapists on staff. So it's filling out the roles and seeing what roles are already filled in this position, and then which ones need to be utilized more. So in this role, massage therapy is really important, since there's not another massage therapist that travels or is there every day. And then I've realized some of the quieter athletes will go towards me, some of the loud ones as well, but it's usually athletes going to pick the personality. So it's being the right person for each other, and I don't have to change anything that I do. I can just, if I'm quiet, the quiet ones will come to me. If I'm really loud and chatty, the chatty ones will come to me. So everyone kind of picks their personality that they work with more.
You're a safe space either way.
Yeah.
You seem very friendly. I would go to you regardless, but I absolutely love that. And it's cool to hear just how much that meant to you. But I'd love to know, like, when you found out that you were getting this position, how did your family and friends react?
It was amazing. So I grew up in Vermont. I grew up in New England. So Boston's always been the home team. So everyone in my family loves the Bruins. So they couldn't believe it. So their first reaction was like, "Can we get tickets?" So they were all really excited and have been supportive.
Were you a big ice hockey fan beforehand, or has it grown since being a part of the team?
I usually get pretty invested in the sport and the team that I'm working in. So growing up, I didn't work with specific teams. This was before I turned into an athletic trainer, so the Bruins were on quite a bit.
That's awesome, and just so cool for you to have that full circle moment to cheer on a team and to be with the team that you've been cheering on for so long. But I'd love to know, just because we are in Boston, and I know so many people are going to be running the Boston Marathon and probably races over the summer, what's a piece of advice you would give for all these Bostonians who will be running in the Boston Marathon?
Make a race plan and try and stick to it as best as you can. Don't do anything crazy on race day. Don't try any new foods on race day. You've got to stick to what you've been training, what you've been practicing. A lot of it's like people try new goos or gels or something crazy that they've never had before, and they're just like, yeah, I'm just going to test it out on race day. So the biggest thing is do what you've been training for your long runs. Don't try any new foods the night before. That would be my biggest advice, is just stick to your nutrition plan so you don't have any additional GI distress, because we already know that there's going to be some GI distress, so they don't want any more than they need to, and probably get a massage after.
That is important. Yeah, get
Definitely
a
the
massage.
massage. Yes.
Go see Andrea. But that is great advice, and I hope people listen to you, because we don't want any of that on Comm Ave or Beacon Street at all. But seriously, Andrea, thank you so much for just sharing your story with us. We're so excited to have you on Respect Your Game, and we're going to be looking out for you in the Boston Bruins organization, and just excited to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Keep killing it.
Thank you so much to Andrea for joining the show. Kasey, I had the best time talking to her and hearing her experience and her story. It was so fun.
Oh, so cool.
So cool, and all the things. And now that you have your hockey experience, it was good to see you guys discuss that. But seriously, thank you so much for tuning into Respect Your Game. We'll see you next week.